Hello, this is Gary Chartier from the Center for a Stateless Society. Welcome to ATP 101, An Introduction to Anarchism. This is Lecture 2. Today, we move into the guts of the Tannehill's argument and our reflection on it. And what they're up to in the two chapters that we're going to be discussing for this week. Number one, the adequacy of the market to provide crucial public services. Okay? They're going to talk about this in much greater detail, but they want to discuss the self-regulating market, number one, and number two, the inadequacy of the state as an unnecessary evil. Okay? So, on the one hand, then, they're contrasting what people can do effectively together when they work together peacefully and cooperatively, and on the other hand, why things don't go well when people point guns at each other and make unreasonable demands at gunpoint. Okay? So the virtues of the market on the one hand, on the other hand, the vices of the state. That's what they're up to. Now, the Tannehills begin their discussion focused on the market, and I think it's crucial to recognize just what it's worth understanding when we talk about the market. Okay? The market is not, at least at C4SS, just a matter of commercial exchange. Okay? When we talk about the market at C4SS, we don't mean just buying and selling. Certainly that's a big part of any market. But we're using market as a shorthand for voluntary cooperative interaction of any kind. Now, I don't think that the Tannehills would deny this, but they do focus here especially on exchange relationships. And so I just think it's crucial that we emphasize that when we talk about the market, as long as people are voluntarily cooperating, we're not expressing some particular bias for commercial relationships over other voluntary relationships. There are gift relationships, for instance, in which people certainly engage very effectively as well. Now, here's just one brief aside. And as I emphasized before, since I'm operating on the assumption that you've actually read the book, I don't think I need to cover everything that's there. I do think, however, that it's important to offer some asides about issues that won't get the kind of coverage in the book they need, and here's one. If you know the work of a number of us at the Center for a Stateless Society, you will know that we've been part of an ongoing discussion among market-oriented anarchists about the use of the word socialism. Okay? So the Tannehills offer a definition of socialism that we would reject, and that's just worth your being aware of. When the Tannehills talk about socialism, they have in mind state socialism, a situation in which the state owns the means of production and controls the economy, at least from what we've been taught to call its commanding heights. Okay? Now, that's a perfectly okay definition of state socialism, but not all socialism is state socialism. And we just want to emphasize the range of meanings that the word socialism can carry. Check out, for instance, the work of one of the founding fathers of 19th century American individualist anarchism. Almost all these folks were males. We're very pleased by Voltaire de Cleyre, but unfortunately this was a pretty gender-exclusive club. So I apologize for the father's language, but unfortunately they were largely male. Benjamin Tucker, editor of the publication Liberty and author of a number of really crucial works in this conversation in the 19th century, Tucker famously wrote an essay called State Socialism and Anarchism, how far they agree and wherein they differ. And what Tucker said in this essay, if you haven't read it, just Google it, you can find it easily enough online. What Tucker says in this essay is that we can distinguish multiple strands within the socialist tradition. And within that socialist tradition, he clearly suggests, lie both individualist anarchism of the kind Tucker is arguing for, and state socialism of the kind for which Marx is arguing. Okay? And so he clearly distinguishes himself from Marx because, of course, Tucker, believes in free trade, in free markets, things that Marx certainly doesn't find in general very appealing. And yet, Tucker still thinks that what he's doing lies within the broad sweep of the socialist tradition. Tucker actually belonged to the First Socialist International, the big organization that, of course, Marx belonged to and that served as the major organizing center for international socialist activities in the 1870s. Tucker was one of a number of folks who was kicked out of the Socialist International precisely because he didn't fit in comfortably with the sort of position Marx wanted to take. But the thing to recognize, nonetheless, is that as far as Tucker was concerned, and as far as a number of his contemporaries were concerned, the kind of approach that Tucker was running was a socialist approach. If you want a sense of how one might argue this, take a look at a number of the articles that people associated with C4SS have written. Check out Kevin Carson's blog, mutualist.blogspot.com, and you can Google directly or search within Carson's blog the discussion that he has of the great socialist definitional free-for-all, and you can see how that discussion plays out. Brad Spangler of C4SS has a great little piece called Market Anarchism as Stigmergic Socialism. You might take a look at that. Broadly speaking, I think if you're going to take this approach, the kind of approach that I'm talking about here, the idea is that socialism is about, this is a vast oversimplification, but is about the empowerment of workers and the elimination of deprivation. So to the extent that you move away from bossism, from hierarchical authoritarian relationships in the workplace, and poverty, to that extent, to the extent you move away from bossism and poverty, to that extent you're moving toward socialism. Now, clearly, that's not a definition that everybody's going to accept. A lot of people are convinced that when you talk about socialism, you're talking about the operation of an authoritarian state. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask whether there might be, to use the title of a collection of essays that the Alliance of the Libertarian Left published of mine a few months ago, whether there might not be market means to socialist ends. Okay? Market means to socialist ends. This parallels Kevin Carson's discussion of achieving green ends by market means. Okay? And I think it's that distinction between means and ends that's really crucial here if you want to understand what the debate about the use of socialism is concerned with. When we talk about socialism, are we talking about a cluster of ends and means, or are we just talking about goals? If we're talking about ends, then people automatically think we must be talking about nationalization and operation by the state, and that's not, in fact, what we're talking about at all. What we're talking about is standing in solidarity with workers and leading toward the elimination of deprivation. But we can do that, we're convinced, through genuinely, radically free market means. Another wrinkle here, my friend Sheldon Richman points out that using socialism is a way of emphasizing that society, rather than the state, ought to be the locus of economic decision-making. Socialism rather than stateism. Society features a distributed model of decision-making in which a vast number of actors and an even greater number of relationship nodes cooperate to shape the economy. Socialism. Society is a great thing. Never think that individualist anarchists, or indeed sensible libertarians of any kind, undermine, deny, reject the importance of society. The question is, do you have society where there's voluntary, grassroots, bottom-up decision-making, or do you have the state